Hi TransLash family, it is Imara Jones with our weekly TalkBack video that we said that we were going to be doing each week, and now, well, we're doing it each week. You might notice that I'm actually in the same clothes as from the conversation that I had in our Lives at Stake conversation between Black cis heterosexual men and Black trans women. That's because I'm recording it right after that. Of course, that's on my mind. If you have not watched it, you can go on our timeline and watch it. You can also read a blog post about it tomorrow where I'm going to share some of my thoughts. It was a really powerful conversation. I think the thing that stood out for me is that one of the things that maybe it worked for a lot of men, a lot of cis Black heterosexual men, is that they actually don't have a lot of depth in terms of or learning, I should say, not depth, but learning emotionally to be able to be emotionally deep people and to feel a full range of things without necessarily reacting in certain ways. And that attraction for trans people, because it's a taboo, can feed into that. And that was the thing that struck out for me, and that we need to do a better job of actually raising adult men to be emotionally intelligent and to not be ashamed of a full range of feelings that they have. But it's the first in a series of conversations that we're going to have. Nala and Justin, who were the two people that came to talk to us, were absolutely brilliant. So make sure you check that out if you didn't. I was kind of disappointed because one of the people that we were supposed to have on, who is trans skeptical, canceled at the last minute, but it actually meant that we could have a really frank conversation, which I think was probably better for us in the end. So make sure you check that out. And we took all of your questions. That's why it went double the time. It was supposed to only be 30 minutes and we went an hour. So now let's turn to some of our TalkBack topics, where I spotlight one of the things that was most talked about on our timeline, and one of the things that was least talked about that I think that everyone should have been talking about. Probably one of the most talked about things coming into this week was a post that we put up about wombs, artificial wombs, or womb transplants being now an option possibly for trans women, and the coverage by the UK Health Service, National Health Service, in paying for that. And that erupted into a huge conversation on our timeline. And I think what it brings out is just our entire anxiety, both in wanting to have the bodies that we have, and then understanding that some people may not want to do that, and whether or not that factors into us being seen whole as trans people. Some people fell into the body essentialism thing. It brought up whether or not trans people are truly male or female or women or men, regardless of what we do with our bodies, and others saying not. It was a polemic on our timeline, but that's to be expected because there are a lot of strong views about how we use our bodies, and that's not to be a surprise. So just keep the conversation going there. Make sure that it's not transphobic, but share, because not all trans people agree on what body changes mean for us or don't. So just keep that in mind. And probably the least, our post that was talked about the least, which I was surprised about, was a coalition of trans groups actually came out and held HRC, the Human Rights Campaign, to task. And that's because HRC, without talking to community, came out with a trans initiative. And that was weird because they have a track record of often coming in and taking credit for other things that people in the community have done, or making announcements about how they're going to do grand things that don't actually translate into action on the ground. And so trans groups came out and said, not so much, not so fast, not this time. Please talk to us, link to us. We're hopeful about what you're doing, but please make sure that you act in concert. And HRC is a big organization. It's a $40 million organization each year, and we need them to be on our side, and on our side in a way that's going to make a difference. And that was probably the least talked about post, but I think it's really important in terms of our entire community, especially in light of the fact that the new HRC president is a Black man, a Black gay man. We want him to win, and we hope that he's going to be more sensitive, Alphonso David, but it remains to be seen. So the most talked about post, and actually the most talked about post, was all of your conversations and questions after lives at stake. So make sure that you also stay tuned for our next lives at stake, which is going to be next week, October 16th. Where we're going to talk to Shane Strangio, who is a lawyer for the ACLU. He actually was Chelsea Manning's lawyer, where we're going to talk about the October 8th, so this week's argument in front of the Supreme Court about whether or not trans people have rights and can actually be protected by the law. So thanks for joining for this weekly series, and have a great week.